Hello everyone, my name is Aaron Woodman, and I want to welcome you to my YouTube channel. In this video, we will dive deep into phase 2 of the Inclusive Leader Continuum, Aware. This is about learning to listen with an open and curious mind to different communities of people, especially those who are perhaps less familiar with, and to be truly present to receiving information that is new or challenging to you so that you can grow in awareness. Awareness is a powerful stage in your inclusive leadership journey where you continue to cycle back to it as you learn about different people and communities. You will always be absorbing new knowledge around different identities, and as the culture continually changes, it is worth it to constantly revisit shifts in language. As you deepen your own self-knowledge, you are again destined to return to this stage. We talked about humility in the previous video about the unaware stage. Humility is still key to the stage of your journey. Anytime you believe you know everything about one community, the aware phase reminds you that is not possible. Even if you are a member of that particular community, it is possible that you still have more information you need to uncover in terms of how others have been affected or how you yourself have been affected by exclusion and inequality. As you learn more information, some unpleasant facts emerge that demand to be more broadly understood. As you grow in awareness, you may learn more about how your experiences have shaped your identity, which will help you discover your unique voice to champion change. You may have experienced your differences as negatives until now, and you may continue to choose not to disclose certain personal stories, but the good news is that you can use those differences as fuel to become inspired about what you can do. Perhaps you can even leave frustrating experiences behind in order to take a fresh, more optimistic look at what is within your sphere of control. The knowledge you accumulate at this stage can challenge some deeply held ideas you have about fairness, hard work, and how advantages and disadvantages have informed your life. Everyone has been shaped through circumstances outside their control, from primary dimensions like age, ethnicity, and ability to secondary dimensions such as family, religion, and socioeconomic background. You can't change any of them, of course. They were either born or inherited and have been carried forward by you as circumstances of your lived experience. You have built awareness by noticing others' reactions to you, whether they are positive, negative, fair, unfair, and so on. This stage is about becoming aware of other people's experiences in this regard and understanding the gaps that can be bridged to cultivate an environment where others feel more welcomed, valued, respected, and heard. With this context in mind, let's talk about privilege. As you become aware, it is important to educate yourself about your claim or lack thereof to special advantages not freely available to everyone else. Privilege is something that is afforded to certain people by society and in the workplace, often offering them invisible benefits that people of another status cannot access. It can be defined as the extent to which one has access to something that another does not. Privilege can relate to race, class, gender, sexual orientation, language, geographical location, ability, gender, sexual orientation, language, geographical location, ability, and religion, to name a few. Privilege can also include someone's socioeconomic status. For example, if you can buy what you need and want without worry, you are not seen as a threat in higher socioeconomic communities and are more likely to be believed innocent by the criminal justice system, you have access to class privilege. Now, talking about privilege is a sensitive topic and can bring up some pushback where there is a belief that admitting our privileges somehow invalidates how hard we have worked to achieve certain advantages not available to others. We may assume that the label privilege implies we don't deserve to have what we have, or infer that we have never experienced hardship. That is not what I am talking about here. Remember, the whole point of understanding privilege is to see what influences specific groups of people to have more resources than other people, as well as how each group of individuals are perceived by society. Let's proceed into talking about stories of origin, which is where you have serious self-reflection about what more you need to know and what you have experienced already in life. You likely have a story in which you have personally experienced adversity, exclusion, felt you're different, or perhaps been up close and personal with a loved one who has had to wrestle with being more or less accepted. You have a story of origin because you have lived through a new realization, an aha moment, a lesson learned, or a profound life experience. And often those moments are ones of discomfort, uncertainty, and loss. Whatever it is, the experiences that form your stories of origin will reveal themselves over time. But if you don't let them come center stage and consider how you might use them, you aren't living up to your potential as an inclusive leader. The passage of time, with its healing powers and its ability to enable you to see your experiences from a safe distance as guidance, is a gift. This wisdom does not just appear out of nowhere. It needs to be worked at, pulled out, and examined. It can gain meaning and significance through being articulated, first to yourself, and then in a safe space with others. As you invite new perspectives like this, it can be a fragile time, one in which you need to be careful of judging yourself and others. You might fall into the trap of feeling badly about yourself, where you think, quote, what could I possibly share about myself that might be helpful to others, unquote. But when you give yourself permission to dive deeper into some of the universal human experiences that we all share but don't typically talk about, you'll begin to understand the parts of your life that can help you better relate to other people. When we connect privilege into storytelling, here are some questions and topics to think about as you self-reflect. 1, what was your life like growing up? Did you experience any hardship not shared by some or all of your peers? 2, when have you felt the sting of exclusion in your life? What did that feel like? How did you navigate that? 3, can you share a story that reveals a bias you've overcome or helps someone else to overcome? 4, describe an encounter you've had with someone different from you. For example, from a different race, class, gender, sexual orientation, language, geographical location, ability, or religion that influenced you in a positive way. Or describe an encounter you've had with someone different from you that influenced you in a negative way, and consider why. Was it uncomfortable because of assumptions or biases that affected the experience in the wrong way? How could that experience have been valuable or positive if you had thought or acted differently? 5, describe an encounter you had with someone different from you that made a difference to them in a positive way. As you think about these questions and topics, they will help you critically think about what you know and don't know, what impact you made on others and impact others made on you, and if you believe you are on a good path towards inclusion or need some additional work on that. When you can dig into your past experiences and better understand how they shaped your life, you will be in a better position to help others through similar challenges. As you uncover how your identities have been shaped by privilege, or a lack thereof, you not only discover your origin stories, but also in what areas and instances your life has been easier or indeed harder than for others. You begin to understand just how unequal the playing field really is. Your eyes begin to open to the obstacles you have come up against, as well as those others have had to overcome. Armed with your newfound knowledge, you may feel embarrassed or even angry on behalf of yourself or someone else. You may want to speak up on behalf of a certain group or individual, but feel afraid to do so for fear of saying the wrong thing. But let's say you still want to help a group of individuals. This is where you might call yourself an ally of a specific group, a specific demographic group. In this case, you would say you are not personally against a demographic group and want them to be treated with dignity. While that is important, it raises questions about if you feel the same impact and experiences of that demographic group. According to social neuroscientists, there are distance biases where you may not feel the impact if you are not personally affected in some way by a specific issue, and therefore you may devalue the significance of such events. For example, an unjust thing can happen to a Black person and they have to go through the negative experiences of that thing. Even though you could see the unjust thing happening to the Black person, the distance biases could possibly make you think it is an isolated incident, and you might not think it could be a widespread problem. That is an attempt to devalue the significance of the unjust incident because the bias is preventing you from empathizing with the Black person and seeing if this unjust incident happened before to someone else. Essentially, if we do not fully feel a negative incident, it is hard to fully get into it, although it is not impossible. It's also difficult when we hear so many discriminatory stories in the news. It can be hard not to emotionally disconnect from it all, but doing so is not helpful for driving change. If your compassion or anger is not activated when you hear of such things in the headlines, try thinking about how you would feel if your story of origin were strongly tied to the community experiencing hardship. This will help you gain the awareness of how personal these events can feel to people. Again, this is connected back to empathy. Even if you still feel like you're on the outside of these issues or believe certain problems do not pertain to you, you are still being impacted. Remember that our individual and collective productivity in an organization is bound up with each other's. Organizations are made up of working relationships in which we depend on each other to accomplish our work, to innovate, and to generate big ideas. Everyday colleagues may be managing devastating news and messages that deeply affect their personal stories. Simply being aware that other people are going through such difficulties is a huge step towards becoming a more inclusive leader. It shows you are being considerate of their lives and you want to support them. Now, let's continue to talk about bias in regards to interrupting it. As aspiring inclusive leaders, we have the great opportunity to challenge not just our wiring, but how we were raised, what we observed in our lifetimes that shaped our beliefs, and what responsibilities we have now to those around us. But we need to be aware that we were raised with the biases of our parents and our communities, and that they became woven into our minds. As cognitive neuroscience researchers like to say, if you have a brain, you're biased. So bias will never go away. It is universal neurobiology and nothing personal. For instance, you may notice that you only sit next to people who look like you, or you only ever recommend somebody for an opportunity if they have a similar educational background as you. You might be doing all of these things consciously or unconsciously, but this is important to keep in mind as you think about how you behave around certain people. Once you understand that we are all biased, you have the cognitive ability to self-correct, and being biased becomes a choice. This new awareness, and then the ability to choose different behavior or action, is the measure of our character as inclusive leaders. Some of these biases may have become more deeply rooted if you have not seen diverse examples of professionals in a variety of fields. Take, for example, the media. The lack of diversity in the media you consume may be contributing to your biases by implicitly telling you who belongs where and how they're supposed to function in that profession. But the good news is that more and more people are noticing who is missing from the popular cultural landscape. As you look at the data, the disparities are generating some attention. Another example is corporate America. In 2017, only 16 of the Fortune 500 companies shared detailed employee demographic information. Within senior management and executives of those companies, which is around 5,089 people, 80% are men and 72% are white men. The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission reports that from 1985 to 2014, Black men in management rose from 3% to 3.3%. Meanwhile, Black women still only constitute 1.5% of senior management in the Fortune 500. Keep in mind that white men make up only 42% of the labor force. This information is from the Bureau of Labor Statistics as of 2019. I bring all of this up to show how there is very little diversity at the top levels of all kinds of companies, which can raise concerns about who belongs there and who does not belong there. If we are always seeing white men be CEOs of a lot of these major corporations, we can see one type of perspective being shared in and from those communities without considering other types of perspectives from different demographic groups who are not being represented. Now, let's say there are diverse viewpoints being represented. We also have to see if those diverse viewpoints are actually being executed in those corporations, because that affects if those viewpoints truly belong there. If not, then there is a representation problem. Remember, the goal is not to eliminate bias, which is in fact neurobiologically impossible, but to generate awareness. You can learn to correct for bias. You can create new pathways to question business as usual. One way to continue working past our biases is to participate in unconscious bias training. These programs create aha moments for people who are unaware of an issue that is leading to inequities in the workplace. It is a popular approach because when you look at your biases, it can be truly shocking, and shock and surprise can lead to a shift, a new insight, and new behaviors. It may also lead to feelings of guilt and shame, but these feelings should not hamper your journey or put it on hold indefinitely. Consider this approach as investing in yourself by investing in an inclusive future you want to have. It is in your power to recognize when your biases and your behaviors are not serving you. And sometimes it is not you, but that does not mean you are off the hook. By not challenging bias when you see it in others, you're enabling a bias system to continue to cause harm. Now, as you can tell, all of this work will take time. This is not going to be accomplished in one day. In fact, as you listen and become more aware of the real issues so many of us are facing in your workplace and beyond, you may begin wondering why diversity and inclusion continue to be a persistent issue in our communities and why things have not improved. Perhaps you are even questioning why you never knew the things you are learning about through actively listening to other people's stories, or if you knew them, why taking some kind of action was not a priority for you before. You may begin to reconsider a lot of things. Part of the problem for leaders is that in the organizational world, they like to solve things and quickly. You may be paid to problem solve every day, so it is not a surprise that you would try to apply this lens to what is a complex and multi-faceted, multi-layered reality that needs greater care and a more nuanced approach. According to Anne Gerhardas, author of Winners Takes All, he shares that in business, we tend to look at problems like we look at fixing an engine. Clear solutions, quickly executed, and then go on to the next, instead of problems which are more like crime scenes. Quote, problems with an engine need to be tweaked. You turn the dial or that dial and you fix the engine. A crime scene is a different kind of problem. You don't show up at a crime scene and say, you know what, let's just move forward. What's done is done. That's a preposterous response to a crime scene. At a crime scene, the goal of understanding is entirely for the larger sake of preventing this outcome in the future. You have to first look backwards. Who did this? How did this happen? Who is the person that did this? How do we help the person to whom this was done? Unquote. Essentially, many organizations treat inclusion as an engine problem, taking shift but superficial action. Since organizations are obsessed with goals, they may set aggressive hiring or promotion targets. Although hiring goals may be met, for example, what matters more in the long term is if those who were hired actually stay, and if the culture is one in which they believe they can thrive. This framework also applies to any organization that recruits members where they need to figure out how to retain them for as long as possible. If you notice that you do not have a full pipeline of diverse talent to choose from, or that certain people are not staying, or team members are failing to perform adequately, then you likely have an inclusion problem within your company's culture. If you treat inclusion like a crime scene instead of an engine problem, you'll be able to get to the root of the issue. Once you are aware of where the problem came from, you will be in a good position to figure out how to solve that problem. Lastly, as you think of a solution, you should listen to and gather feedback from members around you so you can make the solution a collective effort. In conclusion, the aware stage is about deepening your understanding of inclusion through listening, self-reflection, and humility. As you grow in awareness, you learn to recognize how identity, privilege, bias, and lived experiences, both your own and others, shape opportunities and outcomes. This phase requires us to stay curious, understand our assumptions and biases, and take our time with creating solutions that are effective and impactful by acknowledging bias as universal and part of our cognitive function, reflecting on personal origin stories, and treating inclusion challenges as crime scenes rather than quick fixes. You can use empathy to connect with people, uncover root causes to exclusionary actions, and create cultures and spaces for people to truly belong and thrive. In the next video, we will proceed into phase 3 of the Inclusive Leader Continuum, active. Until then, please like this video, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and turn on the post notifications so you will be notified when I post my next video. I appreciate your support. Remember, you are powerful, you are capable, and you are the changemaker our society needs. Thank you so much for watching this video. I will see you soon.